Hi, everyone. Welcome to our executive order. My name's Nathalie. I use she, her pronouns, and I work in the ASWW Office of Civic Engagement. I'm joined today with Anna Corinne and Chelsea, and we're going to be talking about the positions on the upcoming November ballot. Obviously, presidential elections always have the highest voter turnout rate, as we discussed in our previous episode. Even in 2016, though, we had a pretty low voter turnout rate for presidential. So it's really important to get out and vote down the ballot. We have a lot of important statewide races and local races that are really important to vote in. These will probably be what you see impacting you even more than big races like the president. So make sure you're voting down your ballot and turning in your ballot promptly when you receive it. Today, we're going to be talking about races on the Washington state ballot, specifically Whatcom County. If you are interested in a personalized voter guide specific to your county where you live, you can go to votewa.gov, and there's a personalized voter guide based on your address, and you can learn there on your local candidates that we won't be discussing today if you don't live in Whatcom County. So make sure to check that out. Local candidates are really important, and the voter guide is really helpful. So be sure to check that out. Chelsea is going to take over next and talk about how to fill out your ballot once you receive it.
Okay, so on your ballot, you will have multiple sections, and in order to vote and to have your vote counted, you have to fill it out pretty specifically. If you are a student, you are familiar with Scantrons, the forms that we use to take exams that are multiple choice often in classes. Voting and the way you fill out your bubble is the same way. You have to use blue or black ink, and you fill in those bubbles as best as you can. Remember that you don't have to fill out every position, and if you don't receive your ballot or it goes to the wrong address, print it, make sure you include the signature page, and put your completed ballot in an envelope, put the address of your county's auditor's office, and put it in a drop box.
And once you receive your ballot, the first thing that you're going to see on there at the very top is the presidential race. So the chief of the president is to ensure that the laws of the nation are fairly executed. This is through the appointment of thousands of federal positions, some of which are state by state, but they're all federal, and they include secretaries of cabinet level agencies and federal judges, as we're seeing now with the Supreme Court. The president is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military and has the power to sign and veto or reject laws that are passed by Congress. And they also make treaties with foreign governments with Senate approval. So in Washington, we have a lot of presidential candidates on the ballot. It's interesting because I'm a Montana voter, so my ballot looks a little bit different. And we only have 2 presidential candidates on my Montana ballot, which is Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So kind of interesting how it varies by state. But in Washington, we have a few more options for different parties, including Libertarian and Green Party and Socialist Workers, in addition to the Democrats and Republicans. So good choices there. After that on the ballot, you'll be seeing U.S. representatives for Congress, districts 1 and 2 if you're in Bellingham. These are your Congress representatives, federal. They're elected for a 2-year term, serving in a congressional district. They introduce bills and resolutions, offer amendments, and they serve on committees. So these committees are really important, and they can include higher education, rules, things like that. So we have 2 positions for those. In District 1, we have Susan Del Bene, who is the Democrat incumbent, and Jeffrey Beeler, who is the Republican. And for District 2, we have Rick Larson, who's the Democrat incumbent, and Timothy Hazello, who is the Republican candidate for that position.
So next up, we have the statewide positions on your ballot. And first, we have governor. The governor is the chief executive officer of the state and makes appointments for hundreds of state positions. These include directors of state agencies, and they are subject to confirmation by the Senate. The governor has assigned the power to sign or veto, which is to reject legislation, and annually submits a budget recommendation and reports on state affairs to the legislature. In this position currently is Jay Inslee, and Jay Inslee will also be on the ballot once more. Also on the ballot for governor is Lauren Culp. Jay Inslee is on the Democratic Party and Lauren Culp is Republican. The lieutenant governor is elected independent of the governor and serves as the presiding officer of the state Senate. This position is first in line of succession and becomes acting governor whenever the governor leaves the state or is otherwise unable to serve. On the ballot, you will see Denny Heck, who is a Democrat, and Marco Leas, who is also a Democrat. Your Secretary of State position leads the State Elections Division, Corporations and Charities Division, the State Archives and Library, and other programs and services. The Office of the Secretary of State manages corporation and charity filings, collects and preserves historical state records, and governs the use of the state flag and seal. The Secretary of State is second in the line of succession for governor, and the current position holder is Kim Wyman, who is Republican, and you will see her on the ballot once more. And Gail Tarleton is also a Democrat and is on the ballot this year. The state treasurer is the state's finance officer and manages the cash flow, investments, and debt of all major state accounts. The treasurer serves on the state investment board, providing guidance for the management of long-term debt and investments, and chairs the Public Deposit Protection Commission, ensuring the safety of public deposits in qualified banks. This year, on your ballot, you will see Mike Pelliciotti, who is Democrat, and Dwayne Davidson, who is the current position holder and is Republican. Next, we have the state auditor, who works with the state and local governments to conduct independent financial and performance audits. The auditor publicly investigates state employee whistleblower claims about agencies and reports of fraud, waste, and abuse of taxpayer money received through its citizen hotline. Currently, Pat McCarthy holds this position and will be on the ballot again, and they are Democrat. And also running for this position is Chris Leba, who is Republican. Our Attorney General position serves as legal counsel to the governor, members of the legislature, state officials, and more than 200 state agencies, boards, commissions, colleges, and universities. The Office of the Attorney General protects the public by upholding the Consumer Protection Act and provides public information about consumer rights and scams. Currently, Bob Ferguson is in this position. He is Democratic and is on the ballot once more. And Matt Larkin is Republican and is also on the ballot. Commissioner of Public Lands is the head of the Department of Natural Resources, overseeing management of more than 5 million acres of state forest, agricultural, range, aquatic, and commercial lands. The commissioner manages the state's largest on-call fire department, preventing and fighting wildfires on 13 million acres of private state and tribal-owned forest lands. Currently, Hillary Franz is in this position and is Democratic and will be on the ballot again. And Sue Cole Peterson is Republican. Superintendent of Public Instruction, heads the state education agency and is chief executive officer of the State Board of Education. The superintendent is responsible for the administration of the state's kindergarten through 12th grade education program, and the office certifies teaching personnel, approves and accredits programs, and distributes state and local funds. This is a nonpartisan race, and Chris Rakedahl is currently in the position, and Maya Espinoza is also running. Next, we have the insurance commissioner, who regulates insurance companies doing business in Washington, licenses insurance agents and brokers, examines the operations and finances of insurers, and handles inquiries and complaints from the public. Running, we have Mike Kreidler, who is currently in this position and is Democratic, and Shirayu Avinash Patel, who is Republican.
So up next, we have our legislative candidates, and in Whatcom County, we have 2 legislative districts. We have District 40 and District 42, and we have a couple different positions that are on the ballot this year. First, we have State Senator, and the State Senate has 49 members, 1 from each legislative district in the state. The senators are elected to 4-year terms, and approximately 1/2 of the membership of the Senate is up for election on an even-numbered year. The Senate's only exclusive duty is to confirm appointments made by the governor. And on the ballot, we have Elizabeth Lovett, who is the Democrat incumbent, and Charles Carroll, who is Republican. We also have 4 state rep positions that are on the ballot. 2 from District 40 and 2 from District 42. And these representatives are state house representatives, and they have 98 members, 2 from each legislative district in the area. Representatives are elected to 2-year terms, so the total membership of the House is up for election each even-numbered year. And we have Deborah Lekanoff, who is an incumbent, and that is an uncontested race. Also in District 40, we have Alex Ramel, who is a Democrat incumbent, challenged by Russ Zialo, who is a Republican. In District 42, we have two races as well. One is Luann Van Werven, who is the Republican incumbent, and Alicia Rule, who is a Democrat. And we also have Jennifer Sivik, who is a Republican, and Sharon Shoemake, who is the Democrat incumbent. And these roles, because they oversee Whatcom County, are commonly people Western students would want to get in touch with if they have questions or if they want to see something done because they are more specific to our area. Additionally, we lobby them if we have concerns or want to see something done in Bellingham or at Western, and each year we go down to Olympia and we can lobby them, and we typically have lobby days, but this year they're going to look a little bit different, but those are the people that Western students typically get in touch with. Additionally, we have the judicial candidates, and the judicial candidates must all be in good standing to practice law in Washington. We have a couple Supreme Court justice positions that are statewide, and the Washington Supreme Court is the highest judiciary in the state. The state Supreme Court justices hear appeals and decide cases from Court of Appeals and other lower courts. There are 9 justices that are elected statewide to serve 6-year terms, and they uphold the Constitution and interpret laws passed by the legislature. There are 4 Supreme Court justice positions on the ballot this year. The first one is between Dave Larson and Raquel Montoya Lewis. The second one is uncontested with Charles W. Johnson. The third one is Richard Stearns and G. Helen Whitener. Next one is uncontested and is Deborah Stevens. And then the Whatcom Superior Court, there are 2 judge positions on the ballot as well. The Superior Courts are more specific to Whatcom County, and they hear felony criminal cases, civil matters, divorces, juvenile cases, and appeals from the lower courts. They apply the law to the cases that are presented to them. They are organized by county into 30 districts, and the Superior Court judges serve 4-year terms. Currently, there are 2 judge positions that are on the ballot this year, and they are between Evan Jones and James Erb, and David Freeman, who is an incumbent, and Jim Nelson.
For our last countywide race, we have the Public Utility District Commissioner, District 1 for Whatcom County. The Public Utilities District is actually really important, but a lot of people don't really realize what they do. Basically, they're in charge of our public water and electric services. A big issue on the ballot this year was about bandwidth, which has to do with our bandwidth access in the county. So a really important race to make sure that you're understanding, even though it's pretty far down the ballot. The Public Utility District also ensures resource protection and environmental stewardship in Whatcom County, so pretty important. And you can learn more on their website as well. In this race, we have Jeffrey McClure, who's the incumbent, against Christine Grant.
In addition to all of the positions that are on the ballot, Washington State also has a variety of measures that are on the ballot, and I will be talking about what they are and what they're about. So first, we have statewide referendum measure number 90, and a referendum allows voters to approve or reject laws that are proposed or enacted by the legislature. This referendum is connected to the engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5395, and it concerns comprehensive sexual health education, and it would require school districts to adopt or develop comprehensive, age-appropriate sexual health education for all students. This curriculum would be required to use language and strategies that would avoid discrimination against any student. It must include information about affirmative consent and bystander training, and the curriculum, instructions, and material would vary by grade level. This referendum is highly controversial, and there's a lot of misinformation about it out there. But there's also a lot of good information out there, so I encourage you to look further into it. We'll have some additional resources in our description. Next, we have 4 statewide advisory votes. And an advisory vote is just a non-binding vote, and the results will not change or impact the law directly. They are meant to gather public opinion to advise potential future legislative decisions. First, we have advisory vote number 32, and it is related to Senate Bill 5323, and it aims to reduce pollution from plastic bags by establishing minimum standards for the use of bags at retail establishments. And it does this by increasing a pass-through tax at retail establishments for specific carry-out bags. So if you are in a grocery store or at a retail site and you use a plastic bag or a non-reusable, there will be an increased tax. In Bellingham, we've already seen this applied, and the retail sites already either paper bags or reusable bags. Like I said, this is a non-binding vote, and voters can decide whether they think the tax increase should be repealed or maintained, but it won't directly change the legislation. We also have statewide advisory vote number 33, which is related to Senate Bill 5628, which concerns the classification of heavy equipment and rental property as inventory. And this led to a tax on heavy equipment rentals to consumers by rental property dealers. Statewide advisory vote number 34 is an advisory vote related to Senate Bill 5323, which aims to address workforce education investment funding through business and occupation tax reform. This bill increased business and occupation tax rate for certain businesses while reducing surcharges. Voters decide whether they think this tax increase should be repealed or maintained. And statewide advisory vote number 35 is related to Senate Bill 6690, which concerns aerospace business and occupation taxes and World Trade Organization compliance. The legislature increased business and occupation tax on manufacturers of commercial airplanes. Voters decide whether they think this tax increase should be repealed or maintained as well. So those 4 advisory votes, there's a lot of information in there. We will also link the information to the different Senate bills. They're interesting to look over and see what Washington State Legislature is doing with each of those bills. And then finally, we have the statewide engrossed Senate Joint Resolution 8212. A Senate Joint Resolution allows voters to decide whether to approve or reject a Washington State constitutional amendment. So voters will have the option this November to decide whether or not they want to see this change on the Washington State Constitution. It is linked to Senate Bill 8212, and this proposes an amendment to the Constitution concerning the investment of funds to provide for long-term care services and supports. So this constitutional amendment or change would allow for the investment of public pension funds, retirement funds, or industrial insurance trust funds, and funds held for those with developmental disabilities. So this means that they would be able to invest those public funds. There are also local measures on the ballot, which we will not be going into detail today, but if you go to your county's voter guide, you can see more information about the local measures that are on your ballot, depending on which county you're voting from.
So since it's an even-numbered presidential election year, there's a lot on the ballot, obviously, so don't be intimidated by any of this. These things are built to be confusing for people. It's a form of voter suppression to use confusing language, so try to do what you can to muddle through all that confusing language and use your voice and vote. We're here to help, so feel free to always reach out to us if you need any clarification on what any of this language means, or if you want any resources about where to look for things. We're happy to help. You can always DM us on Instagram at ASWW_OCE. Chelsea?
I do want to say or point out, I find filling out the ballot is more fun with friends. So find a group of friends to do it with safely. And if you have questions, you know someone else may have an answer. And that is always something to keep in mind, that if you do it together, you can drop it off together. You can say I voted together. And you also are holding those in your social circles accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of research that shows that a personal connection with voting encourages people to vote at a greater rate. So if you encourage your friends to vote, they're more likely to if they see somebody that they know and care about voting as well. So that's a great point, Chelsea. You have up until October 26th to update your voter registration online or to register to vote for the first time online. You can go to votewa.gov and do that. That's also where we mentioned you could find your personalized voter guide. So that website is a great voter hub. If you miss that October 26th deadline, you can register to vote in person at your county auditor's office until Election Day, until 8 p.m. on Election Day. You also can print your ballot like what we mentioned before. So make sure that you can do that if you don't get your ballot in time If you do get your ballot in the mail, make sure you sign the back of your envelope. That's a really commonly missed thing that makes sure that your vote is not counted. So make sure you sign and date the back with the full date and turn it in by 8 p.m. on election day, which is November 3rd. At 8:01, they're going to stop accepting ballots. So make sure it's in by 8 o'clock at the very latest. If you could get it in sooner than that, the sooner the better, to make sure that your vote is for sure going to be counted. So with all of these races that we have and all the people that are running, there is still always the option to write in a candidate. Writing in a candidate means that you're placing your vote for them and not for the other people who are listed on the ballot. In 2016, there was a lot of write-in candidates for really silly things that people just thought were a joke. Writing in a candidate does take away from the 2 or more people who are listed on the ballot, as they typically garner less support if there is a write-in candidate campaign. But that is always an option if you don't like either or any of the candidates running, or if there's somebody who's a write-in candidate that you're really passionate about. Writing in is always an option as well. So besides the people we talked about, you can always write in as well. Again, I just want to reiterate that we are here for you as you're voting. You can DM us on Instagram at ASWW_OCE at any time, or you can send us emails that we can put in the description. We're here to help you. Our jobs are paid for by student dollars so that we can make voting easier for you. So we just want to make sure that you get out and vote and get your ballots turned in as soon as possible. This has been Nathalie,
Anna Corinne.
Chelsea.
and this is our executive order. Thank you.